Hey, everybody, this is your boy John, and today on the GFTM podcast, we're going to be talking about time travel. It's going to be a very interesting concept, and again, we're going to be, kind of maybe dive into some theories here, but again, tune in and let's get geeky. Hey, everybody. Again, this is your boy John, and with me is Matt.
What's up, guys?
So, time travel, Matt. I mean, I know it can get really bizarre in a lot of different ways. And I mean, we just talked about it before we, jumped on this that, time travel in like, let's say multiversal, like travel and things like that, like it can seem like the same thing. But I mean, it's kind of weird because you think, okay, if I'm time traveling, I'm going back in the past or I'm going in the future or, like something like that. Where if I'm multiversal traveling, like I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to go to a different, let's say, alternate world or like maybe in the same, maybe time frame of what you're doing. So I don't know if like, to me, if that's really the same.
Well, I guess
concept.
it's different in context of, whether you're talking about Marvel or you're talking about like something like Sliders where, yeah, they're literally traveling to different, multiverse points where, Marvel, you look at, where we were just talking before the show, like when Bruce Banner arrives in the past to the Ancient One to get the Time Stone, she's explaining that, if you take the Time Stone from here, it's going to create a new branch on the timeline. And, he's explaining, well, we're going to take them, use them, and we're going to put it right back to where we took them, which will restore the timeline. So you have this idea of like, okay, well, it's a timeline. They're not traveling to, like, I guess I would say DC, where,
Right.
There's an Earth 1 and there's an Earth 74.
Right. I mean, I don't know. I just, when I look at, I don't know, I would say time travel in general, it's, I'm thinking like if you went back in the past, right? So it's always a common theme. It's like the two main ones that people like to try to do is like, either kill Hitler as a baby or something like, and I know it sounds stupid, but like, people say, okay, well, what if we got rid of
They
Hitler?
did it in Deadpool, so.
No. Right. I mean, well, and then you look at like JFK. I mean, I remember there was a TV show called, I think, 1963, where a guy actually goes back in the past and tries to stop the assassination of JFK, things like that. So like what would happen, and so like, you kind of dive into I know we'll be talking about it in a little bit, but like the butterfly effect, how does changing something in the past or let's say the future, like how is that going to affect, certain things that come about? Like you don't really know. And so like, that's where to me, time travel is based on a certain point of like, again, time, whether
Right.
it's past, future, right now, whatever, it just, that's what I consider it. Where multiverse is, like I said, just you're going to another place. Like, let's say, for example, instead of having a world of human beings, let's just say there are a bunch of ducks, and like maybe humans are pets or something.
Or like in Doctor Strange, it's all paint.
Right. It's all right. It's all
Yeah.
paint or, it's, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe people constipated the entire time and they can't go to the bathroom because they're just constipated. I don't know. And there's no bathrooms in that world or something. I don't know. I'm just saying random things, but I mean, there's so many possibilities,
Yeah.
but that's what I think of.
Yeah, I mean, and there are different theories. We're going to mention 4 different ones, but depending on what you're watching or what you're reading, there's going to be a different interpretation of what time travel is. Because honestly, right now it's a theory. It's not something that currently exists or that we know of.
Well, that's true. Yeah, right. Absolutely.
So there are different theories and ideas, and I'll go with the very first one here. Is that you need some kind of a machine to time travel.
Right. And I mean, we've seen in like TV shows, movies, things like that, where, people might jump into like let's say a telephone booth or a sleigh or a ship
DeLorean.
or right, a car or whatever.
Or a freaking hot tub.
Or a freaking hot tub. It depends on which way you want. But like you get into this thing and basically, some things, So like, let's say the DeLorean, right? So like the DeLorean, you have to go to a certain speed to then, go really fast and go through, time.
Right.
Or like, for example, I'm thinking I was going to use the movie The Time Machine, but like that, like where you're sitting in
And
this
that
like
was a
sleigh,
literal time machine.
right? But in the
Yeah.
movie, it was like there was this orb surrounding him, but he saw everything that was going on at that time. It kind of reminds me of Futurama a little bit too, where they did that. I think there was one episode recently that they did that, but basically he got on the machine. It was like an orb, and like you saw everything moving forward, or moving backwards really quick, and understanding like, okay, now you're seeing everything change in front of you, and like that's how the time machine would work.
Yeah.
So I don't, if we could figure it out, great, but I don't know what that would actually look like.
Yeah. I mean, Bill and Ted's, it was a phone booth where they, actually dialed the number on the phone, and that's how they traveled there. Hot Tub Time Machine. It's a long time since I've seen that movie, but
that
I want to say like it was kind of a mistake.
I think they had to. I think there's like settings on the tub themselves, and then they had to like. Well, of course they had to. They all were wearing like
Right.
shorts or something like that. But like, yeah, I mean, you wake up and you're like, oh wow, because what was it? One of the scenes I remember, instead of Google, it was, I don't know if it was like Juggle or I don't know, it was something really stupid, and he like
Right.
made it his name, and I was like, wow, imagine if you could just change all that and become a billionaire all of a sudden.
Yeah, and I mean, Avengers, they had a machine that basically, traveled them through the quantum realm to where the point that they needed to go to.
Right. And I mean, like, so like that was an interesting theory where like they're talking about the quantum realm, and we're talking about like itty bitty, like, pieces of matter, like, and like that's how they're using that as a like a time based,
Kind of navigating through.
time, which I thought was interesting because I mean, granted, in that, quantum realm, like time really doesn't move at all.
No.
There is no really
Yeah.
movement. But I mean, if you watch Ant-Man, the later one, you'll understand why that it makes more sense. But
So
like,
I don't really know if there's, just off the top of my head. I mean, butterfly effect, I think, is one of them that there's no machine. Like that was kind of like an internal process.
oh, you're talking about the movie Butterfly Effect?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think that was more of like an internal process that he did.
Well, yeah. See, like that's the thing. I mean, it's weird because, like, when you look at different interpretations of what time travel is and like how do you do it, right? We don't know. And I mean, if somebody could ever figure, I'm gonna tell you right now, the person who ever creates time travel will probably be the richest person on this planet. Easily, I'm telling you right now.
Well,
You
for
watch.
those nerds out there who follow people like Stephen Hawking, he has already, he had theorized that time travel was not ever going to be possible. So, I mean, whether it is or it isn't, like
I mean, he could say all
science.
right. I'm just saying. I understand that he's saying that it's not possible. The problem is we don't. Right now, we just don't have the technology to get to that point. I just think a lot of things, but we don't have. I mean, think about it. I mean, people say we are going to have flying cars, and I mean, I'm not saying we don't. We just don't have them available. It's more like military technology, things like that. But it's like
Right.
we were supposed to have these things right about now, but like again, we're not there yet. And so like that's the same thing with time travel. We're
Yeah.
not there to get to that point.
Not that I'm trying to get like overly political or negative here, but the way that our society is now,
Oh boy.
time travel would be an awful thing to create right now.
Oh, I agree. I'm not saying it wouldn't be. Really, I
You
feel
think
like
of
it'd
all
be-
the people that would just go back to like kill politicians or to push certain agendas, like it would just be an awful thing.
Oh no. I mean, like I think of another, and it was a Disney show, and I know it's going to sound stupid, but Phil of the Future. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
No, I haven't seen that.
It was pretty interesting because they get stuck in the past because somebody. Again, it was like the butterfly effect where they. I think it was like the first episode. They like interfere with something that was supposed to go on in the past, and they clearly it was kind of like Back to the Future where they were like ceased to exist, and so like they basically stopped time travel, and then they were basically stuck, and they had to stay in the.
That would be
present
my
day.
biggest fear with like you go back in time and you change one small little detail and now time travel no longer exists. So you literally just can't go back to where you
Well,
were.
So the problem was is the family that was there. I can't remember their last names, but it doesn't matter. The point is like they were messing with their own family members and they didn't know it. And then the problem was is that it caused them to basically again not be able to go back into the future because they
Yeah.
were screwing up the past. And so I agree with you. It sucks that if you didn't know exactly what was going on and what was supposed to happen, then you're like, okay. And then all of a sudden, yeah, everyone's like, okay, stop. We're not doing time travel anymore. You're screwed and you're going to stay right here. Yeah, that would kind of suck. So if I got stuck in the, let's say, 1930s or something like that during the Great Depression, like I would, yeah, that would be a terrible time to be in.
Very terrible. Yeah. And I mean, I think there's been three butterfly effect movies, and from my recollection, all three of them really don't have positive outcomes with
No,
I mean, obviously the first one with Aston Kutcher, like he
it
goes
was the
back
more
and
well known one, but
yeah, I
yeah,
mean, he goes back and he makes a change and it completely messes up everything. So he goes back and makes another change and another change and another change, and it just keeps progressively getting
worse.
worse and worse. And that's what if we had time travel right now, like that's somebody who is probably would be like the biggest idiot
Oh yeah.
in history would go back and make a change, and we would just cease to exist at that point. Like that's
Well,
how I see like time travel right now. Like if you had time travel,
yeah.
like you would have to highly regulate who can do it.
Well, that's the problem. You, you have regulations, you have government, you have all this other stuff, especially control. How are you going to regulate that? You know what I'm saying? Like, what do
It's
it's like gun control, man. Like,
yeah,
how are you going to regulate that?
it's really really tough. But moving on to the second one, we kind of already touched on this a little bit, but if you change something in the past, it will affect the future.
Right,
So
the
this is
butterfly
like
effect.
the grandfather paradox is what it's called. Um, Back to the Future. What ends up being the change is Marty falling from the tree instead of George.
Right.
So the father, hits Marty instead of hitting George, and it kind of changes that whole story from the past of Lorraine falling in love with George. Now she's falling in love with Marty.
Which is their son.
Um, so you have that change. So it's whatever you kind of change in the past changes the future, and like the butterfly effect, it could have unknown changes. Who knows?
Well, and then and like I said, it was hard to really know if that's something that could happen. I mean, granted, it definitely could, like because we've already talked about it just a second ago. I mean,
Yeah,
if we don't regulate or if we didn't tell people like, hey, you can only do certain things. There's not this and that. I mean, but like again, how are you going to regulate stuff like that? But what I agree with you. I mean, when you start changing things in the past, so like I said, like I mentioned, Hub Type Time Machine. Like the guy literally changes Google to his name or whatever, and I'm like. Like, and he just becomes a billionaire just by doing it. So, like, people could do stupid crap like that and then become, these successful people. And you're like, wait, what?
yeah. And this is for those of you who are kind of more old school like I am. If you've seen the movie Time Cop with Jean-Claude Van Damme, this is one of the things that happens in this movie. Like there are time cops, sort of like an exact kind of copy of what the TVA does. In that, in the story, there's a guy who, you know, studied the stock market in the 50s and the 60s, and he goes back, becomes, an investment broker. He invests money in the 50s in stocks so that he can be a billionaire in the future.
I will say this, though. I mean, realistically, like I said, if I could save whatever money I could from now, like just save it, just don't even think about it, and then like go do that in the past, find a bank or find something like that and invest in something. I mean, that's smart. That's probably what I would do. I'm not going to lie. I would just take whatever money I had, start putting it into certain things, and then just wait until the future and then be like, boom. Because that's smart. That's really smart in that sense.
It's smart until Jean-Claude Van Damme, obviously, you're like, yes, he's playing a time cop. So their whole job was to find these people who were making these changes and to bring them back to their own time, basically arresting them. And that's exactly like kind of what happens. I think he actually this guy actually jumps out a window to be honest. But
I don't know. I mean, or just make it so it's not as noticeable. Like that's the problem. I mean, you can only make it to a certain degree, but like,
I think for this story in particular, like they monitor like they monitor time. So
yeah.
when they, if the like for this example, like the stock exchange, this guy was investing in things that people weren't investing in
Mm.
because he already knew like, oh, these things are going to go up. So I'm going to start investing my money in there now so that I can sell it in the future. And this is kind of like where they caught this guy was, he's making these investments that didn't happen in history. You know what I mean? So like
Oh yeah, I
it
get
was
you.
those kind of things that like, but like it's one of those weird things. Like when you change something, how will it affect the future? Like I could say, back in high school when I was trying to go into the Marines,
Wait, what? I didn't know this, Matt.
um, I failed the physical because I needed to have a surgery.
Mm.
So for me, if I go back, a year prior and go, hey, before you go take your ASVAB and the physical, you need to see a doctor and have a surgery on this thing. And say I do that, and now I go take the ASVAB and I pass the physical, my whole life would be
Oh, it would have been a 180, my friend.
completely different.
Look at you. I had no idea that you wanted to be a Marine.
I did it, but I failed the physical. And then when I had my surgery, I had to wait a year and then go back. And within that year, it just was like, yeah, I don't want to do that anymore.
So was it like a spur of the moment? Just I know it's a side topic, but
Well, no, I mean, because I was going to West High School, which is in Manchester, and I was part of ROTC, which is the Naval Junior Reserve Officer Training Corps, John.
yes, I do know that, man. I was just wondering. This is stuff I never heard, so this is
So
quite
I was in
interesting.
ROTC the first 3 years, and once I kind of failed that physical and I really just lost interest, it was one of those things like, yeah, I'm not into this anymore. Like ROTC was kind of an easy course. Like all you really had to do was wear your uniform one day a week, and you kind of sat in the class. The teacher that we had was an older guy from the Navy,
Oh, no kidding.
and he was a great teacher, one, but we could every single day we had class. Hey, can we get that story again from when were blah blah blah, and he would just go off on a story and not teach us anything. And that was every single day. Like somebody else would be like, "Hey, in 1960 something, like, can you tell us that story again?" And he would go off for like a 45-minute story, and they were really great stories, but
I just love how it's just
we
like
just never learned anything because he would get to the end of the class and go, "Oh, well, I guess we'll teach you that tomorrow."
so every day that's all you were doing. So basically, that was like your like senior skip, like or not really like it's like one of those easy classes you'd have at like senior year. You're just like whatever.
We knew he would just tell these stories, and I mean, yeah, I mean, we did learn stuff in there, but it was kind of one of those. For me, it was like an easy A class as long as you participated.
Oh
You
yeah.
know,
So just keep asking them stories. You're
yeah.
good. I know we gotta move on, but
You want to do that third one, John?
I'm gonna try to make sure I can pronounce this correctly.
Ontological.
Ontological.
There
Okay.
you go.
So I didn't know anything about this, but I'm going to read it out. So compossibility, which is the past is a certain way, thus is not possible for it to be any other way. The travel is limited to what did happen in the past. So, right. So basically, it's just whatever it is, that's what it is. It's not changing.
Right. Yeah. It's not possible to change the past, and I mean, I would say like, for that one, you would be more of a viewer than you would be like somebody who like we said, or like going
Yeah.
back and trying to kill Hitler.
Right.
You wouldn't be able to do that. It's
Because it's already been written.
it's already been written. It's already been done. There's no changes that you can make. You can basically just go like, I would say, A Christmas Carol
Okay.
would be
Okay.
would be one
Yeah.
of those where you can't see them, or nobody else can see them, but
But
you're a viewer and you're watching what's occurring.
mm,
Yeah.
okay. No, I mean that's an interesting theory. I mean, I don't know. I, again, this is why time travel it because we don't know a whole lot about it, and there's just again so many things that
There's
can
not a
be.
lot of like stories or stuff that deal with like that, particular principle.
I mean, really, like Christmas Carol is probably your best, or really, like Scrooge or
Yeah,
something like that.
Scrooge,
Yeah,
where I mean, you could say that's more of a dream, but I mean, they go back in time, they go into the future of
yeah. Future like Ghost of Christmas Past,
what might
Future.
occur. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, and that makes sense. I mean, it's an interesting theory. I just again,
The next one is more interesting to me than this first one, but
all right. Well, then you go ahead.
so this one's the self consistency principle, which is that whatever you do in the past or potential changes that you make was a part of history already. So it's impossible to change something. So, say I'm going to kill Hitler. I mean, we're using that clearly as an example.
Clearly, that's a good example.
If
Yeah.
I go back and kill Hitler, something is going to occur where I don't kill Hitler, but I kill something, somebody else. And I
Right.
can't possibly change what has already occurred because no matter what I've done, the past is already set and it's already been made. So if I make a change, the present has already accounted for that change.
Well, actually, another great example was with Loki, right? Because like he was trying to stop Sylvie from killing He Who Remains, and literally every single time he just could not change it. And he
Yeah.
was like, "Well, it is what it is. I can't do anything about it." And I mean, granted, they figure out another solution, but like that's a great example of like, okay, is this going to happen? No. Okay, how can I stop this? How can I, And he would do it thousands of times, but like again, that could happen to you. You could just keep redoing the whole thing over and over, and you're like, okay, I need to do this time, or I need to do something else, or like Groundhog's Day, like it sounds weird, but like reliving the same moment, but then like what's going to happen, and then it's just going to continue that way. But I don't know. I mean, a lot of these theories so far, it's like I could see some of them, and then I can see some of them that are like, yeah, I mean, we don't know because we're not doing it, or we're not physically in that.
I want to say like Legends of Tomorrow played on this one in particular with them. Like if they went to change something like this, it would be the same result. Whether they like,
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, I know what you're saying.
whether like, I go to try to kill Hitler and then something happens where that doesn't happen.
Right.
But every time I go like, okay, well, I'm going to bring a bazooka. That's it. Like we're done. I fire the bazooka, something happens, like maybe he's not there, maybe something else occurs. So I'm like, okay, bazooka's out. I'm gonna get the biggest light machine gun that I can find, and I'm just gonna go in there and blast. And maybe the gun jams or something, it's like every time you try to do it, like it just doesn't happen. And the same, like I said, that part of history has already occurred. It already happened.
Right.
So when we're looking at the present, like if somebody went back and tried to do something to Hitler, it's already happened. So if I try to go back, I'm gonna help this dude try to kill Hitler in the past. The present will still have the same result.
Right. And I mean, I don't know. Until we like again, until
All
we
these are
actually know,
theories,
right?
Yeah.
Until it actually happens, like we don't really know anything. I mean, they're all great in their own regards, but it's like, I mean, honestly, the one I would probably say, really, if anything, I mean, yes, I could see the third one. I mean, if you put all of them together, they're pretty much one big theory.
Well, I mean,
You know,
it's all a theory. I mean, whether the past is already set and no changes can be made to it, or whatever changes you are planning to make or have already made, the present has already accounted for that. So essentially, both of these are kind of the same, where you can't change the past because it's already been done. And when you think of the present, like if I go back and I go to try to kill Hitler, this is saying I've already done that. Like in the present, I've already done that.
Right.
Present has already accounted for me going into the past and trying to kill him. So if I go and do that, it's going to play out exactly how it already played out.
Right. I mean, and you could try it many different ways, but it's not going to really change the overall outcome.
So the next couple of them are more, I guess, these would be more theories of time travel in itself, which are presentism and eternalism.
Mm.
And eternalism is the idea that the past and the future exist in the real sense. So it's not only like changes that occur or will occur to the present, and then future events are already there. So this would be like the past, no matter where or what time you want to go to, and the future, no matter what time you go to. These are physical places you can actually travel to. Like they exist. If I pick a place, I can go there. And whether or not like I want, I can make changes, like we said, like whether the changes are already done or like Back to the Future, I make a change and it changes the future.
Right.
You can go from the past into the future, into the present, back to the past, back to the future. Like you can travel to these places.
Well, the next one really seems more kind of interesting to me, like presentism. So, like, it's the idea that the future and the past exist only as changes that occurred or will occur to the present, and they have no real existence of their own. In this view, time travel is impossible because there's no future or past to travel to. I mean, it's interesting in that regard because it's like, okay, well, then you're right. Maybe that's where Hawking kind of came into play and says, hey, I don't know if it's possible to do that because of everything that's going on in this particular theory.
Right, because presentism is more of the idea like you can't travel to the future or the past because they no longer exist. Like the future isn't set. You can't travel to 3124 because it doesn't exist. And you can't travel to 1856 because it already occurred.
Right.
Like you can't go there. It's not a physical place you can go to. That's the idea of presentism. And scientists either have eternalism or presentism in the way that they think. Obviously, Stephen Hawking, yes, he was probably more of that presentism where, one, the technology isn't there and it probably won't be.
Probably not.
I hope.
I was going to say,
I hope
not in our lifetime, it won't be, no.
But the past is not somewhere you can travel to because it's already been done. It's already been taken care of. Like whatever changes that were already made, like it's done. And the future is not written. So it'd be like if I go to 3124, if time travel is a thing, I would be basically going to like a white, like in a cartoon, like they go to that like completely white background.
Yeah,
like there's nothing there because it's not written yet.
And that's the thing about these theories is that again, I mean, they're great. They're great theories,
yeah.
right? But it's just, we don't really know what can be and what can't be. And so like, with presentism, the reason why I thought that was interesting was just for the sole fact that yes, it's something that has already occurred in the past. Okay, well, that's cool. You're not going to go back there. But then like, in the future, because it hasn't been written in stone yet, where you're going to travel to because it hasn't existed yet, and so having that, in the mindset of like what, like you were just saying about Hawking, like, again, the reason why these are all theories and because again, I know Matt and I, and probably everyone that's living currently, we're not going to see that in our lifetime. We're going to see this technology. We're not going to be able to see what, could happen in the future. But again, if they ever do find out, and I told you this, I'm just saying, the person who creates time travel or something regarding that will probably, and I'm just saying it, they will probably, because if they can capitalize on it, they're going to be one of the richest people on the planet, or probably the richest person on the planet.
And when he does create it, that will literally be the end of the world.
It would be. Absolutely. I'm not disagreeing.
So I would be glad not to be alive when it's created.
No, I agree with you, Matt. I'm just saying, like,
because it'll be worse than the Thanos snap. I can tell you that right now.
It definitely would be.
Yes,
because everybody would change everything, and then basically, you're right. Everything would cease to exist.
Right.
and we would never exist as a podcast. So here we are.
So going through some of the movies, I mean, we mentioned Time Cop. Like, if anything was close to, what the TVA was, Time Cop would be that movie. If you haven't seen it, go see it. I mean, it's been out literally for a year. I think it came out in the 90s. So, I mean,
early, yeah.
it's an older movie, but it still stands the test of time for me. But it's, Jean-Claude Van Damme plays a time cop. They enforce time travel essentially. And, obviously shit happens to him. But what's interesting is, the DeLorean goes a certain speed. I think in that movie, they use a rail car.
Oh, in Time Cop?
Yeah. And it's sort of like almost like a, crash test dummy sort of setup. Like there's a wall.
Yeah.
And when they hit a certain speed, that's when they travel through time.
So they're taking the same idea that they took in Back to the Future.
Sort of, but it's a little different. I mean, because it's a train car and it goes much, much faster than the DeLorean does.
No, but when you said the DeLorean, I was like, I didn't realize that they used an actual DeLorean to actually go travel through time as well.
No, it's like a modified train car.
Oh, okay.
Like a rocket powered kind of train car.
The reason why I was asking is because you said DeLorean, and I was like, oh, okay, well.
I said like the DeLorean in Back to the Future.
Okay, my bad. Okay, gosh. Anyways, yeah, so like the next couple movies like Looper, Edges of Tomorrow, Butterfly Effect. We've already mentioned the, Butterfly Effect. So, I mean, changing something in the past and then, in this case, he just creates his basically hellhole because he can't really, do anything about it, and he just keeps creating more chaos for himself and everything around him. But like, that's that whole, like we've talked about, like the whole grandfather paradox. Like, is it really worth you trying to change it and you're just going to keep doing it? It's going to create this like massive black hole basically around you. Hop Top Time Machine, man, like I said, I mean,
obviously that's more of a comedy movie.
Oh, no, yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you haven't seen it, I mean, it's been out for a few years now, but I mean, it's
worth seeing.
Oh yeah, I mean, because you got to have some spoof. I mean, Craig Robinson, all them, they're great.
Yeah. Idiocracy, that one, I love Idiocracy, and if you want to like maybe have a peek into what society is going into, Idiocracy is probably
your best movie. Yes.
But that one, they go into the future and everybody is, I mean, basically they're idiots. They're using Gatorade to water the crops, and obviously they're not.
Because it has electrolytes, yeah.
Because it has electrolytes, yeah. It's just one of those funny movies, but it does deal with time travel.
Yeah, I mean. And a lot of the movies we're going to mention, like, 12 Monkeys, what is it, Time Machine, Austin Powers? I mean...
He goes back.
Which one was it, though?
I think at least the first and second one, I think.
Man, it's been a while.
Because I think in the first one, he does go kind of into the future, I think. Right? Because, I mean, he
was frozen. That's right.
He was frozen, so they, but it does deal like with time travel,
Right. Yeah. I could see that.
I think the second one, it's a car, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Cause if we go down a rabbit hole, I'd rather not do that right now. But yeah, I mean,
because I think he goes into the 70s in the second one. Or is it the third one?
It's been so long, but I mean, still, if you haven't seen Austin Powers, it's great. Just watch it. It's fine.
It could be Gold member. I love gold.
You're smoking a pancake?
I like
pipe
gold.
Faja.
Planet of the Apes. That's a big one. I mean, obviously, the astronauts are in a ship and they land what they think is Earth, but find out that apes have taken over.
Yeah, but
they don't know it's Earth.
The question is, though, what's your favorite line in that movie?
The "Get your hands off me, you damn dirty ape."
I know because I was waiting for it.
It's such a great movie because I mean they don't know they landed on Earth. They think they're just on a random planet. And it's not really until the end of the movie that you discover like they're on Earth. And, it's just kind of one of those like it's an unknown how they travel through time. It must be like a space hole. Those holes in space,
Yeah,
John.
those wormholes, space holes, and not just regular holes. At least it's not the Great Cornholio. I mean,
Well,
it's
those
kidding.
freaking space holes.
But like, yeah, like so the next couple, so like Bill and Ted's, Excellent Adventure, like that one again, another satire.
That's
The
so
funny,
iconic though.
oh, absolutely. I mean, they made a third one.
They did, and it's actually really good
It
too,
was,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, they're older, but I mean, it's quite funny.
I love their muscle suit, like they're
Oh yeah,
when they're in jail.
yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. And then like Endgame. So I mean, I'm not gonna lie, Matt. I told you it's one of my favorites. Just saying. But like yes, this is where we've talked about in the beginning, where their time concept as well as their multiverse concept, it kind of just correlates with one another because of if you watch Loki and if you watch all that stuff,
Right.
it's just basically a branch off the actual timeline, the original one. And so again, if you haven't seen it, I'm just going to say it. You're kind of losing out on that. That's just what I'm saying.
It's time travel in that, yeah, they're you can look at it as they're traveling to different multiverses,
Right.
but when you have a show like Loki that introduces it as a timeline and each of the branches are a different timeline, yeah, you have different multiverses you can travel to, but at the end of the day, each of them are just break off branches from the main timeline because there was a change that was made,
Right.
you
For
know.
me, yeah. Which I mean, I get it. It's just I don't know. It's just stupid. It is what it is, though.
Yeah, I mean Terminator 1 and 2, I mean pretty much all the Terminators have dealt with time travel.
I mean, it's pretty much based off of that. I mean,
Yeah, cuz it's, Skynet's in the future and they send back a Terminator to kill Sarah Connor, so it obviously that's kind of the core component of Terminator where they're sending something back to kill Sarah Connor before she gives birth to John, and obviously they fail, so they send another one to kill John and Sarah, and that's kind of the that's the gist of Terminator, like all of them.
literally, it was just to kill two people. That was it.
In the TV series, though, I'm not sure the year they started. I want to say 85. That
One of
they're
the
originally in, and then they actually go into 1995. So they actually travel forward in time.
well, because the original movie came out in '85, right?
I believe so, yeah. And that's where the TV show kind of starts. It starts kind of after that. After like,
Oh,
after
yeah.
Terminator 2 and stuff. Well, after the first Terminator cuz John is older, but they go into 95.
Okay.
So they kind of travel forward in time. Um which I don't think a lot of the Terminators have dealt with traveling to the future,
Right.
more of like something coming from the future coming to the past. Um, but yeah, I mean that's Terminators dealt with it.
Yeah. I mean, and then you got well, the Christmas Carol. That's always a classic. I mean, since we're already in December now, but like,
I mean, it's like is it or isn't it? Like, is it a dream? Is it real time travel?
I mean, it's
Eh,
interpretation. I mean, I mean, I feel like it can be a dream, but I feel like it could have been like maybe a time dream. Hmm.
mm.
Could be a time dream. I don't know. It depends. Maybe that could be another theory.
But I mean, it does deal with the past, the present, and the future. So I mean, we are talking about him and these ghosts of Christmas, past, present, and future, bringing them to the past to see you know how he was, how he has been, and how he's affected like his family and other people
Right.
going into the present, like seeing that, and then going into the future to see like what might become of him and others. So I mean, it does deal with time travel in a way, but it's not something like Back to the Future or these other things that where he can make changes because they don't see him. So
Right. It just depends. I mean, it just depends on how you want to look at it like that. Um, and then going on to like TV shows. I mean, we've talked about Legends of Tomorrow a little bit. I mean, that show to me though, I agree. It's yes. I mean, of course, it's all based basically on past events. Because people, it's kind of like it also kind of reminds me of like again Loki because like somebody was screwing up the past technically, and was trying to change certain events and change certain things, and so again,
Right. This
it's
does have very much like TVA,
kind of
except they're
vibes.
they're they're not like official, time agents or whatever. They're basically superheroes that want to protect time.
Right.
So they go they basically like their computer system will find these like variations of time and then we'll go and figure out like what's going on.
Right. And how do they, restore the timeline in that sense to make it as close as
Although
possible?
towards the end of the show,
Oh, they
it,
went
it
rogue.
started gotten weird and they just kind of went with this one certain narrative like for what 2 or 3 seasons.
I want to say, yeah,
It was so it they definitely like
they started shifting.
shifted, yeah.
Yeah. And especially, yeah. But, anyways, it's still a good TV show. I would definitely recommend it. Um, and then I actually never, I don't know, have you watched The Umbrella Academy? Because I haven't.
I have, yes. And I want to say, I mean, it does deal with time travel, but I think it's like more of the second season
Oh,
where they go back in time. But um, it does deal with time travel much in the way they travel back in time and kind of get stuck there. Doom Patrol is kind of the same way. I mean,
yeah.
it has dealt with time travel with
Things and whatnot.
with them going back and doing things and
I mean, yeah, I mean, and of course, like, looking at the next one, so like Doctor Who, you know,
I
that's
have not watched a lot of Doctor Who to be honest,
okay.
but
Listen, the fact that it's still running and it's been on since the 60s, okay? Like, I think there's got to be a stopping point. I'm just saying. I feel like there's got to
I
be a
mean, if
stopping
people
point.
are still interested in Doctor Who, keep doing it.
I
You know what
mean,
I mean?
I get it, man. I mean, the
I mean,
show's been around since the 60s, for
from
God's
being
sakes.
in a show from the '60s, how many more original stories can you possibly write that hasn't been done?
Think about it.
I don't know,
If
but
you
people are definitely like you have your Star Wars and your Marvel fanatics. Like there are Doctor Who fanatics.
No, I know, but what I'm saying is like it's been going on for 60 years, man.
I
That's a
get it.
long time.
I totally get it. But I think the draw to Doctor Who is, you know, I don't know if it's every year or every so many years. There's always a different Doctor,
Well, yeah,
and
that's
that's
so
I think the draw of it. Like, oh, this guy's going to be the new Doctor, and or this chick's going to be the new Doctor, and they kind of play on that. Like, there's going to be a new Doctor, and
but it, like
that's what renews the interest of the show.
because if I'm not mistaken, it's the essence of the I mean again the character of the show because basically it just like it goes from like one body to the next to the next to
Right?
the next to the
Yeah.
so on and so forth. So it's like yes, I know when like of course real life we're not like putting our essence into like different things, but like that's what this is essentially doing from the original Doctor that was back in the day till now. And it didn't matter whether it was because I know technically this I don't know if it's this current one or the previous one was like the first time that a girl or a woman was the Doctor and whatnot. I don't know. I mean, I've watched a little bit of Doctor Who, but I agree because I mean, if you wanted to go, I know you tried watching it from the back in the '60s, and
I watched a few from the '60s, and it was so super boring to me. Like maybe the newer show is a little bit better, kind of with like
like technology,
new
and yeah,
technology and how they're written. But yeah, I couldn't get into Doctor Who. But you know what is a good show, John?
what is a good show, man?
Quantum Leap.
The new one or the old one?
I like both, but more specifically like the older one with Scott Bakula.
Scott Bakula.
Um, that one was, he basically leaps from person to person depending on. It's kind of completely random, but there's always kind of a need that he needs to figure out what that person needs
In that moment.
so that he can make the jump. If he ends up missing it, I think he'll get stuck.
So is he? Because I mean, yes, I understand he's like basically jumping into that person's life, but as that individual in that let's say moment of time,
Right.
right?
So a lot of times, like when he'll look in the mirror, like he'll look like that person, but it's his character.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's kind of playing them in that kind of
Mindset.
story, but it does flip. Could be in the 80s, could be in the 90s, could be different times each time. Like he might go into a boxer from 82, and then the very next one he'll be like in the 90s as some investment guy or whatever.
Yeah.
So he definitely jumps around, and that's kind of what makes the show interesting, is because the leaps are completely different, and he's trying to, or hoping that he'll leap back into himself where
Mm.
he currently exists. And so that's kind of the hope that he has, but every episode obviously he leaps into someone else and keeps needing to help them.
So I guess well, I'm assuming that it would be like the season finale and slash the last season ever would be like, oh, hey, look, you finally jumped back into your own body after like 700 episodes. Like,
Yeah, I don't know if that ever with the original show, I don't know if that ever occurred. To be honest, I know
oh,
I know that he jumped into himself at one point, but there were different things about the world that he was in
oh, that wasn't actually
that wasn't, it wasn't him. So it had to be like a different time.
okay.
And, yeah, I guess he probably could have stayed there, but, he, as soon as he fulfills the need, he jumps again. So I don't know if like he ever really got to where he was supposed to be in that show. And there is a newer series on Peacock, I believe.
Yeah, I haven't watched it. I actually was curious to watch it because it does look interesting enough to, kind of get my interest peaks and everything else. But like, I don't know. It was one of those shows like, I know a lot of what of course, what they have been doing is, just revamping an old TV show and just trying to make it as good as it was. But
Well, see,
I
and
didn't
this
know.
one's different because they didn't just recreate Quantum Leap. Like they didn't just say, okay, we're gonna rewrite the whole show and we're gonna do a new, like that's not what they did here. The guy that's jumping is a completely different guy,
Well, yeah, clearly.
and in the show, like he's obviously doing the same thing. He's leaping from person to person, um, but there's a kind of underlying story of Scott Bakula's character still being there and
Ah,
trying to find him by making certain jumps, even though the jumps like are random, like they're trying to track like where he's jumping, so that like, oh, you have 3 jumps until you get here,
right.
where they have it more mapped out in the newer show.
So what? So Scott Bakula's character is like an important part of the show. That's what I'm hearing now.
They haven't shown him,
Ah,
but they've made references to him still being in that, like he's still leaping, like you know what I mean. So
yeah.
he's still there somewhere. Um,
Hmm.
but it's a pretty good show.
Okay. All right. I mean, and then I've watched Agents of Shield, but that one, I swear, every season of that show was just like, how crazy can we make it? How crazy can we go and above and beyond? Because
Yeah,
there was
I
just certain things that I was like, I don't know if I can continue to
I had a lot
watch it.
of like really good, thoughts about the show when it first started. I was,
I thought it was great in the beginning.
what they were trying, what they did and what they were trying to do was great when it first started, but it was like what I was hoping for is like when a movie came out,
It would follow
they would
along.
follow along with the movies, and then somehow what did they go into the future or the past or something?
It was, I think
And
it
then
was
they got stuck there, and then like
yeah.
the storyline just kind of like
Well,
really went like weird.
I mean, and the other thing is too is they even introduced Ghost Rider, and it's like, would they actually bring that character into, the cinematic universe? Like that's the thing. I don't know if they would. I mean, they're, it's affiliated with them, but I like they didn't actually say, I mean, I know that maybe at some point when we talk about like the you know, Midnight Suns, like they could potentially bring him in but would they use that same actor or were they going to change him up? Like that's
That's
the
one of
thing.
those funny things because, like, we all know Nicolas Cage did the very first
Oh yeah,
Ghost Rider, and I think when it first came out, like, I mean, I certainly was one of them that was like, yeah, I don't know if Nicolas Cage really like fits the role, but like somehow my annoyance of Nicolas Cage has, I think, come like kind of a full circle where I actually don't mind him now as Ghost Rider. Like, I think if he came back
yeah.
to do the character, like, that's what I think people might want to see, as opposed to this kind of unknown guy from the show. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, I understand that. The problem is like what we've already talked about is a lot of the characters that we've been looking at and what they've been doing is just they're taking from the modern comic books and just using that, let's say, same character of like, let's say, a classic character of Ghost Rider. So Danny Rojas or Reyes, I can't remember his exact name in the show, but like that's what more than likely they're gonna do because we talked about this actually on the other episode, but the whole woke movement, man. I mean, I'm sorry, it's the truth. I mean, they're gonna take things
Yeah.
they
So that
want to be
means
doing all
Ghost Rider
that.
is going to be a Latino female character.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, I'm just gonna say it, man. I mean, who knows? I mean, it's just depending on how they want to do it. But I just think that if they're gonna do it the right
I
way,
I honestly want a Sasquatch. I think they should hire some more Sasquatches in the world. I mean,
well,
why leave them out, John? I
no.
mean,
I mean,
seriously,
shit,
why
get
leave
the,
them
get the
out?
abominable snowman for this. Just why not? Why don't you go to the Himalayas and go pick one up for you?
There's a reason that we don't see them is because
You're just hanging out in the
you
goddamn
know
mountains.
we don't give them any opportunities.
I mean, clearly, I mean, God forbid, or the Loch Ness monster for that matter. We got to give him an opportunity or her, whatever,
Yeah,
whatever floats your boat. But, anyways, we're gonna go on here.
like Quantum Leap, another great show, and this one's kind of arguable. This one is Sliders.
See, this one I do remember only because, yes, and unfortunately, my dad's not here in this room because I know he had the original, like DVD set and everything else because like he bought it and I remember watching it with him and I thought at first it was weird. I'm not gonna lie, but it was like, but then like once you start to see it and like saw the scenarios that they were getting into, I mean, there was it was like three or four of them like in a group and then. Because one of them was like a doctor and like a couple other things, but they had to like figure out
Yeah, there's
situations.
like a jazz artist, and
It was random. Like it wasn't
yeah,
like your normal kind of people. It was just like random people thrown together and like, all right, we're gonna start, jumping through time. And it's like, wait, what?
yeah, and this one is arguable only because if it, much like I would say the DC,
Right.
they're not necessarily traveling, I think, to different times. They're, I think, most literally travel, like, their explanation is like there's an infinite number of Earths that exist,
Right.
and we could travel from this Earth where we know, like, Biden is president, and we know certain things about it, to another Earth where Germany's in control,
Right.
or we travel to another, where, I don't know, like, there's no actors, like
I mean, that's kind of random, but
like
I know what you're saying.
there's no entertainment, there's no music, there's no TV, there's no movies, like, there's just nothing.
It sounds like it's very boring if that is the case.
Probably would be.
But
I mean,
yeah,
but that's kind of like where they're traveling between these points where it's not necessarily like they're going back to 1942, or they're going back to 1984. Like, they're literally traveling from this Earth to another Earth that's different, to this Earth that's different, and that's the whole core of the show, is they're sliding to these
right.
different.
These different places in the multiverse, and which I think. I mean, if you haven't watched it, I mean, I actually should. I should really rewatch that too because that's a great. I feel like it's just a classic kind of TV show. If especially from like was it 80s or 90s? I feel like it was like maybe late 80s, early 90s. If I'm taking a guess,
I want to say 80s, but it could be 90s.
I think it's in like that weird kind of like in between. But I think, but either way, if you can look it up, I mean, I don't know if it's on anything streaming wise, but I mean, if you ever have a chance to watch it. And of course, we love both Matt and I love this
Oh
show,
yeah,
Rick and Morty. I mean, think about it. I mean, our
Oh
logo.
geez.
Oh, geez, Rick. But like it's true. I mean, like so if you actually look at our logo, that's actually the style of what Rick and Morty is. And so
Yeah.
I mean, and Matt didn't believe me. So like for the first time, I think it was not even too long ago, like he started watching Rick and Morty, and I've watched it all, and I was like, oh, this is great. And he's like, have you actually watched Rick and Morty? And I said, yes, I have. I said I've seen it a while back, and he's like, yeah, I just started watching it. And I was like, I think it's pretty cool. And I'm like, you just now watched it?
There's a whole new season, by the way.
Oh no, I haven't watched it yet, but like it that TV show just goes on the most wackiest, like insane. I can't even describe it. I mean, if you have a chance, watch it. It's on Hulu. It's on actually, yeah, it's Hulu and what? I think there was something else too. I can't remember. I think it's just Hulu.
I mean, I watched the new season on Sling, but
Oh, that's why. Okay. But like again, with Rick and Morty, I'm just saying it. I can't even describe it. It's like
yeah, it's so crazy.
I mean, it's like if you take Futurama and that craziness, take like Family Guy and a few others, and just like make it really raunchy.
Ice-T plays what they call on the show a number con or a letter con.
Lettercon? I don't know.
He's literally a T.
Really?
Yeah.
The letter T.
He's the letter T, yeah.
Okay. I'm glad that he finally showed up on that TV show. That of the most randomest people to ever have on there.
When they had Ice Cube, I think the newer season they showed Ice Cube.
Let me guess, as a cube.
I think he was from like some planet that's all shapes.
Yeah, so he's a cube.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then of course we got last couple, Star Trek Discovery and Picard, and then 12 Monkeys, which is wait a minute, is 12 Monkeys a TV show or is
it was both. They did a movie and then there was a TV show. It wasn't successful, so I think it maybe one or two seasons at the most.
Okay.
You can't have very many because I mean, like I said, it wasn't very successful. But Star Trek Discovery and Picard are ones that obviously Star Trek has dealt with time travel many times.
Yeah, even the beginning of Star Trek itself. But yeah, I mean, it's if you haven't watched Star Trek, I mean, we're not expecting you to watch it. I mean, it really depends on how you
do it.
Do it. Don't be that guy. Do it. No, but like, I mean, you watch it. That's great. If not, I mean, we understand. But like, Star Trek's kind of a big thing, in the geek community, depending on who you are and what you do. But I'm just saying, it's interesting. So you ever have a chance, just check it out. That's all I'm saying for all those newbies out there. But yeah, man, I think we've covered this pretty well. I think we beat it with a dead horse a little bit, but I think for the most part, a lot of these theories. I mean, until which I hope, and like we both said, like I really hope we don't see it in our lifetime because I don't want to know what the world would be like at that point.
No, and I mean with a lot of these, like obviously, like Back to the Future and Time Cop, like they have very solid stories that kind of explain time travel, but like when you get to trying to understand, I mean, sometimes in Marvel, but like DC, where you're pulling in characters from multi different Earths, time travel then really just gets complicated. And you're trying to explain it like, oh, well, these guys are from Earth, 824, and we're from 616, and this one's from 912. Wait. How?
Like, wait, where are you exactly from? Because now I'm confused on what's going on. I mean, and that's the thing. It's
or they don't explain it at all. And like I haven't seen the Marvels.
Yeah.
But at the end of that, like there's an end scene where Monica Rambeau is, she wakes up in the X Mansion from the Fox X-Men series. And Kelsey Grammer, who played Beast, is in that cutscene. So she wakes up on that, on that.
The problem, and we both know this, is that and I'm just going to say it. So if you ever watch like the original X-Men that was from like Fox and everything else, and like in that regard, you want to talk about different timelines and trying to follow along and do all that stuff. I'm telling you, you're going to be wanting to shoot your eyeballs out because you're trying to figure out where everything lines up. because there's like literally
Very complicated, yeah.
well, there's two different timelines. I mean, possibly three. I don't know, but I know the least of two, like the main one, and then they had like a separate one. But who knows if they had a
And
third
this
one
is
or
where it
whatever.
gets really complicated, and then it's the same with DC. Like you start, with the Flash, like where all the where are all these different timelines or universes or whatever. They don't explain it, and you're trying to like,
Oh, no.
where's Adam West and where does George Clooney fall, and
Well, Matt, I
what
mean, they already said that they know what they did. Come on now, DC Elseworlds, baby. Come on, like we.
well, and I get that, but like you have the Flash movie now that has like they went from having Batfleck
Oh yeah.
as Batman to at the end of the movie, now it's freaking George Clooney. So it's like, where did Ben Affleck go? Where did his Batman go? And how did George Clooney now become the Bat? Like,
I already told you it's DC Elseworlds. I mean, that's just their logical choice of what they want to do. I mean,
yeah. And
what
why
it is.
continue doing movies anyway? That's another story for another time.
But guys, we appreciate you guys, tuning in and being able to, give us the love and support. I mean, we had a good time, yesterday. I'm not gonna say anything. It's for boys only, especially the bachelor party we had here. But, we just want to tell you guys again with the Christmas, coming up here shortly and all that. You can check out the merch store, baby. I mean, we got some, like I said, we've talked about some, ornaments and, you know, again, a pin, t-shirt. Yeah, we said t-shirt, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of T-shirts. There's actually two newer ones that are on there. You'll have to check them out if you want to know what they are.
Well, right.
But they're T-shirts. Every T-shirt has a corresponding pin. So if you don't want to buy the T-shirt, you can get the pin. But yeah, there's hoodies, there's stickers, there's all kinds of stuff. You just gotta check it out.
Right. And just again, you let us know. Hit us up. We've been wanting to. I mean, not that we don't like Jeff, man. We love Jeff, but I'm just saying, I mean, we could start Jeff's corner if you really want, man, at this point. Because until somebody else comes along, I mean, who
Yeah,
knows?
send us a message, hit us up. Like we will respond back to you and possibly even discuss, your email on one of our shows. Like that's kind of what we want to do, and we want you to reach out to us. But if you are listening right now on Spotify or Apple, click the follow button so you get notified of a new episode dropping, and give us a good rating, and remember to share it out.
But as always,
Stay geeky.